What am I to do?
Welcome to Razor Branding Podcast with Jackie Russo. To learn more about how to improve your brand, visit brandrusso.com.
Hi, welcome back. We are so excited to be bringing in the home stretch of our National Podcast Day celebration with this podcast marathon. We've been going strong all day long. We've got 3-4 hours to go until we get to midnight, and we will have talked to so many different nonprofits and talking to them about what they're doing in the community and how this year has affected them and what they need from the community to be able to keep going. Because, you know, it's not just businesses that have been affected by this pandemic, it's our nonprofits too, and they give so much back to us. So I'm so excited to bring Callie Christ with Big Brothers Big Sisters to us today, and she's going to talk about what their year has been like. Because when you've got a one-to-one program where people do things together, how do you do that when you can't be together?
It's you know what, the word of 2020 is adapt and pivot, because that's what we've had to do. Our priority has been to keep the kids we serve connected to their bigs, their volunteer mentors, throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. And we've had to just pivot and adapt. And it's been trial and error, and it's been failures and success, but we're in a really wonderful place now where we've been able to keep them connected. The silver lining is that we've built out these new amazing programs that hopefully will, virtual programs, e-mentoring programs, that will hopefully at this point continue indefinitely, even throughout the pandemic.
Roll me all the way back to March. You're humming along nicely. You've got however many couple hundred pairs of bigs and littles, and everything's going swimmingly. And all of a sudden you hear shelter at home, quarantine, nobody leaves their houses, and you think, now what?
Yeah, well, that was our exact thought when they said school's going to be closed. We're like, thinking 2 weeks, and then really had to just adapt. We have a couple of different traditional programs in Big Brothers Big Sisters. For anybody who's not familiar with our program, we're a one-to-one mentoring organization. So we create and support one-to-one mentoring relationships with vulnerable youth facing adversity, with adult volunteer mentors. And those relationships are for a year or more. And we serve youth in a couple of different settings. So we have a traditional community-based setting, and that's where a big and little will spend time together outside of school, outside of work. That's where the big picks up the little twice a month, typically 2 to 4 hours each time, and see each other and do things like going to the park, getting a pizza, just running errands with the big. And then we have another program, our school-based program in Lafayette Parish, in about 12 to 13 schools, where our bigs go and see their littles once a week during the school year for about 45 minutes to an hour. So in March, when shelter in place, social distancing happened, that one-to-one interaction is the core and the essence of what we do at Big Brothers Big Sisters. I mean, that's where the impact is. That's where the positive outcomes are for the kids we serve. So we were faced with, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? And the kids we serve in these programs, even in the best of times, face tremendous amounts of adversity, opportunity gaps, just tremendous amounts of challenges and barriers. And faced with social distancing, social isolation, stay-at-home orders, it just compounds that trauma. So we knew that our number one goal at that point was to keep the kids connected to their bigs, keep the kids connected to positive role models, positive friendships in their lives. And we were able to transition most of those matches into a virtual format. And so that was through Zoom, it was through Skype, it was through other video messaging apps. And we were able to get those bigs and littles to stay connected, most of them. And then from that, we realized, well, wait a minute. Okay, we don't know how long this is going to go on for. We need to keep them connected, but also how can we serve more new youth throughout this? Because with the social distancing, you have more parents reaching out and looking for those free and effective resources to serve kids. And we're one of those resources. And so we built out a new e-mentoring virtual mentoring program that's replacing our traditional site-based program, school-based program for this year. So instead of our bigs going to school campus, they're going to be mentoring you through a virtual space. And we're super excited about that because what it's allowing us to do is reach more volunteers who have time to give, want to give, and can give back and mentor in an easy and meaningful way. And they don't have to even leave their desk. And it allows us to reach the kids that we had a hard time reaching before. Kids in more rural areas where proximity became an issue for that community-based program. Now it doesn't matter. So that's kind of the silver lining of where we've come from the pandemic, and hopefully that e-mentoring and virtual mentoring program becomes a program that we have indefinitely. We're hoping to be back in schools we have a really wonderful relationship with Lafayette Parish School System and an MOU in place. So as soon as they're into phase 3 in Lafayette Parish School System, we're given the go to go back in. But we're hoping to be able to keep that e-mentoring in place for indefinitely, to be able to serve youth in that new way. And again, one of the things is about with Big Brothers Big Sisters is we don't just, match a big and a little and just like throw them out and say, hey, hope to see you around. What makes our matches and our bigs and littles and those outcomes so successful is that they're professionally supported and supervised by our professionally trained staff. So, we're not just like, hey, y'all meet up on Zoom and not taking anything into consideration. We support them through what's called like a match support process. And we have staff who speaks to each party of the match, volunteer, parent, child, on a monthly basis. So, that's that's a whole nother element and layer to what we do. But we're excited about, what the future holds for us in terms of this new innovative way of delivering our mentoring services, and looking at the pandemic in a positive light in some way.
So I see how obviously it affected your operations so dramatically, and how the bigs are able to connect with their littles and the work that they do together. How did it also affect your fundraising? I have to believe that any event-based fundraising has just been, run through the ringer.
So it affected all of them. I mean, we have 3 traditional fundraisers. We have Bowl for Kids' Sake, which has been in the community for years. It's a flagship fundraiser across the U.S. for Big Brothers Big Sisters. At Rock and Bowl, it was March 14th, pandemic. Everything went down March 13th. We canceled a day before. Our largest fundraiser is typically in May. It's called Wine, Women, and Shoes. And we had to postpone that one and then flip virtually, which is actually opens tomorrow. It's a week-long event. And then our Murder and Mystery fundraiser, which is like our most beloved fundraiser at the ACA every year at the end of August. We couldn't pull the trigger this August, but we are having it December 4th and 5th. Of course, it'll look a little different. It will be in person, limited number of guests. So we just had to adapt. And fortunately, we were able to receive a gift from Stavros Niarchos Foundation. It's a global foundation through Big Brothers Big Sisters of America. We received a $50,000 unrestricted gift, which allowed us to match those dollars, and we're still working to match those dollars. So that's been really, really amazing. And just having to shift stuff around and adapt again, with Wine, Women, and Shoes, we raised like $150,000. And without that, you're kind of in a weird kind of space. But what we've realized of the past couple of years prior for us as a nonprofit, and one of my priorities coming into Big Brothers Big Sisters as a director was to ensure that we have a really diversified revenue stream. Because when you're too heavy, and we realized from years past, when you're too heavy and reliant on special events, if you have a hurricane, you have a flood, a pandemic, for God's sakes.
What about when you have all of those in the same year?
All of those in the same year, and you're forced to cancel all 3 events, and let's say that makes up 75% of your revenue, you're really in trouble. Right. And so we recognize that we could have been in that position a couple of years ago. And fortunately, we've really worked to build out, build our corporate relationships, our relationships with foundations, just individuals, and have found ourselves not to be in that position of panic mode. Of course, it makes a huge impact. I mean, we raised in 2019, we raised about $250,000 just in special event funds. So again, we're just pivoting, and we're trying the virtual thing this week, and hopefully we'll see some success there. I hope to not have to do a virtual event again, to be honest. But you got to do what you have to do.
Right. And so for anybody watching who understands just how important this is to our community, you can help support. We've got a Mighty Cause page set up so you can go there and give and help support this cause and help them recover from all that they've lost this year, because you talk about all those missed opportunities. I mean, that's huge, and it's hard to recover from that.
It is. And I mean, yeah, it's definitely hard to recover, because then you're in a situation where you have these amazing events and you count on your supporters that come to these events to bid on auction items and donate, but they've been affected. So it's just, how does the pandemic we had to start thinking 3 or 4 months ago, how is the pandemic going to affect the end of the year giving and giving season for us? So there's just so many different elements to where you're affected and have to think through how you're going to make it through 2020.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about all the way back to the cause. I know that there's often confusion between Big Brothers Big Sisters and Boys and Girls Club. So let's start with what Big Brothers Big Sisters does. And I think there's this misconception that to be a big, you've got to be, some sort of doctor, lawyer, math tutor, something hard and complicated. It's not like that, right?
It's not. And I love that you brought up Boys and Girls Club, because Missy is one of my favorite people ever. And we want to do a podcast together. And yes. I have to remind her, we want to do a podcast and be like, hey, I'm Callie from Big Brothers Big Sisters. I'm Missy from Boys and Girls Club. This is what we do. And in a minute, I'm going to tell you about the amazing new partnership that we have. But we're a one-to-one mentoring organization. Our vision is that all youth achieve their full potential. And of course, we share that same vision with hundreds and thousands of other youth organizations, right? I mean, why wouldn't that be the vision? But what sets us apart from other organizations is the way we get there. And that's through our mission of creating and supporting those one-to-one mentoring relationships. So Big Brothers Big Sisters of Acadiana, we were founded in 1985, but we're an affiliate of a national organization. There's about 240, 250 Big Brothers Big Sisters organizations across the country. And Big Brothers Big Sisters of America was founded in 1904. It's one of the oldest nonprofit organizations in the country, in the world. And so we're a research-based, evidence-based, data-driven organization. And we, partner with parents, guardians, volunteers, and others in the community, teachers and counselors, and really hold ourselves accountable for the youth in our program and achieving outcomes in the areas of, avoidance of risky behaviors, increased confidence, higher aspirations, better relationships with peers and family, and socio-emotional competence, in all of those areas. So one of the great things about Big Brothers Big Sisters is that we have an outcomes evaluation system where, again, like I said earlier, we don't just put a big and a little together and let them go off. We're able to measure outcomes for the youth in our program. And so that's one of the really great things. And to be a big, you don't have to be a doctor or a lawyer. You don't have to have a ton of money. I mean, we need anybody who's a caring adult and has, the motivation to just be a positive role model for a child facing some sort of adversity. We have bigs of all walks of life, from the ages of 18 to 75. We're actually, at the end of this year, going to be celebrating 2 10-year match anniversaries, which we're super excited about. Yeah. One of them, we just had a professional video done. We're so excited about it, and going to be launching that next Thursday.
Okay. I am amazed. 2 10-year matches. That's incredible.
It really is incredible. One of them is 2 big sister, little sister, and the other one is a big brother and a little brother.
Okay. And so they've been together for 10 years each. And so they've literally grown up together in so many ways.
I mean, in so many ways. Like Coy and Keaton, who are going to be featured in our success story video, I mean, they were matched when Keaton was 8. And Keaton's now a junior in high school. Right. And Coy, who's big, wasn't even married or didn't even have a fiance. Now he has a child that the little brother sees all the time. It's just amazing.
Right, right. That is incredible. And so you talked about some of the activities they do. They go bowling, they hang out together, they go grab a slice of pizza, run errands. So really, it's about just spending time together and being a good role model.
It is. And one of my favorite stories is our Big Sister of the Year in 2018. She told us this story. She actually texted her case manager and said, she said, I had an appointment to bring my dogs to the vet. And her little sister, Victoria, they had an outing scheduled that day. She said, I was going to contact Victoria's dad and tell him that I needed to reschedule. Well, when she called to do that, Victoria was like, I would love to go to the vet. I mean, she didn't even know what, had never experienced that. Turned out to be one of the most amazing experiences for Sarah and Victoria, because it was such a learning experience for Victoria that it was just so positive all the way around. Right. And so the activities don't even, we encourage free activities. But that's the heart of the mentoring relationship, or those activities. But it could be as simple as running errands together, washing the car together. Some of our bigs and littles tell us stories where, they're just, a big picks up a little just to take him to the grocery store because he's been so busy that month, because life happens, right? But knows he needs to spend time with them, and just going to the grocery store could be as great as going to the movies.
Right. So how does a little qualify? What makes them, you say, okay, you would be a great little?
Well, typically youth come to us through referrals from school counselors, teachers, or parents, caregivers, guardians. And one of the great things is that, and one of the things from the beginning is that parents are partners with us in this. They recognize and realize the need for their child to have a positive adult role model in their life, which is really, really wonderful. They have to want to be a partner in this process with us. And we like to think of ourselves as like an extension of that family and as a resource for them. But, most of the youth we serve, probably 65% of them come from single parent, low income, female headed households. 74% of the kids we served in 2000 and what we do and serve the kids who need us the most. We're not going to turn away a child who needs a mentor and who needs a big. That's just, and unfortunately, we usually do always have a waiting list of kids. And that's why we focus so heavily on recruiting volunteer mentors, especially mentors of color. And so that's why that focus is so heavy on volunteer mentors, because as soon as we match a kid on our waiting list, another parent realizes, that we're a free and effective resource and enrolls their child. So it's a constant it's a constant kind of battle of, do we need kids? Do we need bigs? Always need bigs. Always, always, always. So if you've ever considered giving back in a way, in some kind of way, and Big Brothers Big Sisters is a great place to do that and do some meaningful work. And again, we have so many programs now. There's so many ways to do that. And I do want to take a minute to mention, because you did mention Boys and Girls Club, and we talked about Missy. And if you're watching Missy, or you watch later, we're going to do that podcast together. But last year, through a collaboration partnership and grant opportunity with the William C. Schumacher Family Foundation, we were able to launch a club-based program. So that's where our bigs go to the club and mentor littles who are already club kids. So it makes total sense, right? That's just like them going to the school. So this launched the 1st of March, and we know what happened right after March. So we have a couple of club-based matches, and we're super excited. The bigs are going to be going back to the club. We're letting them get settled back in the after-school program. But we're super excited about that collaboration and that partnership, because it's only a natural partnership. We serve the same demographic of kids, right? Our goal, our end vision, like I said earlier, is the same. We all youth achieve their full potential, success in school and life. We want to serve the kids who need us the most. And how can we collaborate and come together and do that as a partnership? And it was just natural. And it was the right time for the two organizations, with Missy and I both coming into these roles. And it's been a great partnership so far. And we're just now at one club, but it's a scalable program and looking to expand to all the clubs in the future. So if you want to be a club-based big and support both organizations, that's a great way to do so, and be matched with a kid at the club.
I love that. Kristen Franks is watching. She says, I've been looking forward to this one all day. I've been wondering how the program worked for Big Sisters. I think you have a potential volunteer right here.
Oh, we always need volunteers. Always need volunteers. It's the same. We always have little girls. I know that I mentioned that so many of the kids coming to us are single parent, female headed households. And truthfully, moms of young boys enrolling their sons for a positive male role model. But we have a lot of girls who are enrolled in our program with parents just looking for some extra support for their daughter, or single dads. And the one I mentioned earlier, Victoria, who went to the vet, she and her sister lived just with their dad and had no positive role model, female role model in their life. And so Big Brothers Big Sisters was a natural place for them to find that resource and that support. And right now it's so important, again, because there's so many kids, either doing like the online academy or completely virtual in certain areas. And just to have that support. And a lot of the kids we serve, they have parents who are essential workers. And so they were either alone during the day, it just compounded all of those challenges. So, one of the things I say is mentoring really has never been as urgent and necessary as it is right now because of the pandemic and just so many other things happening.
So we talked a little bit backstage beforehand. Y'all have seen an uptick in volunteers this year, right?
We have. So really since the pandemic, we've seen an uptick in volunteers just looking to give back in some way to the community. And it's been really great. I mean, we've seen growth over the past several years, growth in terms of number of children served. And that's really how we define success for our program, is the number of youth we're able to reach and serve, and obviously the quality and outcomes there. So for us, we've seen growth in kind of different ways this year. We've seen an uptick in volunteers, especially now with this e-mentoring program. Obviously, that's so appealing. For instance, we're working with a couple of our corporate partners, business partners like Home Bank. So Home Bank has a group of volunteers who are going to be virtually mentoring kids from Barranco Elementary, which is fantastic. And so we've seen upticks there. We've seen upticks in interest for like our club-based program. So when we started really pushing that, that's kind of natural because people may be looking to support both organizations there. And now we're working on really ensuring that the public knows that we're a free and effective resource for youth in the community in all the parishes we serve, and for parents and caregivers and guardians to know what we do, how we can help, and what impact we can make. Late March, early April, when we started picking up the phone and really just doing those safety and wellness checks on parents and kids right at the beginning of the pandemic, so many parents, we heard from them, they said, y'all are the first to check on us.
Really?
Yeah. And so we really realized we're not just mentoring facilitators. We're like an extension of those families and work with them as partners in the success for their kids. The pandemic has really taught me and humbled me as a leader of a nonprofit organization that we can do so much more than we do. We need the support to be able to do it. And we really do great things in the community. And fortunately, we have amazing community partners, nonprofit partners like Boys and Girls Club and other organizations to be able to do that and continue to serve kids in this way. And so we're hopeful for the future and hopeful that we can continue to cross all these hurdles and get through the kind of craziness.
Right.
I think I went off on a tangent from what you asked.
No, you were great. You answered about 5 questions all at the same time, so that was perfect. So walk me through the training process. So somebody who wants to volunteer to be a big, what does that process look like for them to get trained? How long does it take? How much work is it? What do they have to do?
So the process is about 2 weeks. The first step is to go to our website if you're interested, acadianabigs.com, and we have a quick online orientation, that overview of the different programs, overview of the youth we serve, needs and needs of the child and kind of strengths of the volunteer we're looking for and that sort of thing. They submit an online application. Within 2 business days, they're contacted by one of our staff to start that enrollment process. We do a pre-interview questionnaire that just kind of answers basic questions, just to kind of help guide us in where we send you. And we ask volunteers at that point, do you know if you want community, school-based, club-based, e-mentoring, where you want to go? They complete an interview with one of our case managers. The interview lasts about an hour and a half, depending on the program. Interviews are a really great opportunity because we just need to get to know you. We want to make the best possible match, again, because we're not going to pair you just like for numbers purposes, right? We want these matches to last. That's our goal, because we know the longer and stronger those matches are and those relationships are, the more positive outcomes for the child in the future. So we do our best to learn everything we can about the volunteer. We do, we have to have positive references. So we'll connect with a friend or an employer, and then a personal reference, either a family member or a spouse. If you've had youth serving organization experience, we connect with them. We do a layered criminal history background check. Safety is our top priority, obviously, especially in a one-to-one situation. Sex offender registry check. And then once you complete all that, we do what's called a pre-match training. And so it's online, and it goes through, it's about an hour online, and it goes through youth development, child safety, kind of what it means to be a mentor. We have some specialized pieces in there depending on what program you're on. So, it's a thorough enrollment and screening process, but obviously because we're pairing you with a child, and want it to be a healthy and safe and wonderful relationship that, is built on learning and growth and trust and friendship and that sort of thing. And then once we identify a big for a little, we do what's called a match initiation. So typically, if it's a community-based program, they take place at our office. And so the big comes, the little comes, we have our staff member and the parent comes. And it's just a wonderful, I call it like the most magical moment, because it's the first time a big and a little meet each other. And then they usually plan their first activity for 2 weeks after that, and then get together twice a month in that traditional community-based program. So that's kind of what that process looks like for a big. Don't let it intimidate you. It's not terrible. It's natural steps to becoming a big or a mentor in our organization. But it's pretty easy.
I don't think it's intimidating at all.
No.
I mean, we're talking about a couple of weeks of steps and then 2 days a month, and those 2 days are a couple of hours. To me, I would imagine the big is going to get even more out of it than the little does.
And that is exactly what I was about to say. And that's one of the things, like yesterday or this morning, we watched this video now that we have that we're going to debut next week. And we were all just like, oh, because, one of the things we hear so often from our bigs is like, I didn't realize how much it was going to change my life. And I don't know why I didn't do this sooner. That's like the number one thing I hear. I don't know why I didn't do it sooner. And when we say, why didn't you do it sooner? They say, well, I just thought it was such a major commitment. And then I realized it's not. Right. You don't have to change your life to change the life of the child.
Right.
At all. And that, and we realize that because of the successful matches and stories and, match relationships that we supervise, support, and facilitate. So that's
awesome.
Kind of, yeah.
So Marguerite Mullins has just posted, what an amazing program. Those are wonderful sacrifices for lifelong effects for a child. And I think when we're talking about these at-risk kids, this is exactly the human connection that people need, that I think the pandemic took away even more so than usual. And so you've got already at-risk people now having less human connection, school, friends, neighborhood, whatever. I mean, if anybody has the ability to donate their time or their money, gosh knows this is the place to do it.
Yeah. And, we said, a year, 2 years ago, we're saying, some of the things we always say is like, we're one of the most human brands in the world, right? We connect humans to humans. And then the pandemic totally changes that. I mean, the pandemic was the most challenging thing we faced, or I know I have faced as a leader for the organization, and our organization as a national organization has truly faced, because right after the pandemic, so many efforts are focused on food insecurity and housing and that sort of thing. And people, if they're not aware of the resource of mentoring, don't realize how essential of a service mentoring is. And one of the things is we were really able to communicate that. We knew from the beginning, we have got to make sure that we're telling our story and we're letting people know that mentoring is an essential service. Our staff is on the front lines working to connect families to resources, to keep the kids connected to their bigs, and just keep them connected. And, you know, I don't really know, after it's been a crazy year. Silver lining is serving new kids in new ways. Volunteers are able to volunteer in new, meaningful, and easy ways. New partners, serving new kids.
That's awesome.
So it's just, you know.
If people want to volunteer, they can go to your website, to the volunteer tab. If they want to donate, they can go to Mighty Cause, because you've got a page set up for today. If they want to learn more, they can go to the Facebook page. Ultimately, no matter what their interest is, there is a path to get them from where they're sitting right now, holding their phones, to where you are with all these kids who could use help.
There is. There's a path. You can support us financially. You can support us with your time and talents. You know, that's where the need is. And we couldn't do it. Volunteers, the heart of, we couldn't do what we do without the volunteers. We wouldn't be Big Brothers Big Sisters without volunteers. So we can't do it without you. And we count on the community to really step up and give back. You know, we ask our volunteers for a 12-month commitment. One of the things I'm most proud of is that our average match length is 29 months.
Wow.
Which, when you only require a 12-month commitment and your average match length is 29 months. I mean, you know, that's how
incredible.
It's really incredible. And one of the other things we measure is like kind of retention rates. How many matches are still matched 12 months later? And we're about 77%, which is way above the national average. So, you know, we're good at what we do, and we produce positive outcomes for youth that we serve. But we always need volunteers, always need financial support to be able to keep doing what we do. So if you feel a connection to Big Brothers Big Sisters, please don't hesitate to reach out to us, katieannabiggs.com. Yeah.
That's awesome. Callie, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate you staying up late and keeping me company. It's past both of our bedtimes, I know.
I hope you can hang in there for the next couple
3
hours.
more to go. We're so close to the end. But
Thank
listen,
you so much.
I appreciate hearing all about the organization and the mission and what y'all have accomplished. I think it's amazing. And so, you know, when I look at all of the different ways people can contribute, this is probably the least amount of effort for the biggest amount of reward.
Absolutely.
And
it's a great
benefit
way
to the community. I mean, holy cow.
Yeah. Thank you so
awesome.
much. I'm so excited.
Thank you.
Great opportunity.
And thank you to everyone who watched. We really appreciate it. Please check out Big Brothers Big Sisters and donate, volunteer, be a part of it. It's such a great way to help the community and give back. And then tune in at 9 o'clock. We're going to be talking to Lafayette Habitat for Humanity, all about how to make sure people have a place to live. Thanks so much.
Bye.
To do.